Well, good evening to you there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Scott Manning coming to you from Scott Manning YouTube Sports Talk. I want to thank all my loyal viewers for being with me here this evening. I know it's 7 o'clock in the evening time, and I know I'm going on the air early, but due to tonight's Game 3 of the World Series, I'm going on the air an hour, and I'm going on the air early tonight. I hope you guys have a great show. We have a lot to talk about here in the next half hour, 45 minutes or so. Let's have a great show. I'm going to start it right out with number 9 Florida, number 7 Georgia. It is the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, but there's a little bit more to it than that. I am also going to be talking about number 17 Iowa, number 18 Iowa, number 17 Penn State on Saturday. I'll also be talking about number 14 Washington State and number 24 Stanford. I'm also going to be talking about some conference races in the Big 12, the Big 10, the Pac12, and the SEC. There's a lot of important battles coming up this week and next week also. And for my closing thoughts, we're going to go back to 1 week ago between Michigan and Michigan State and the scuffle that broke out. I'm going to address that a little bit further, but for right now, let's get started. We're going to go right into the show. Let's have a great night. Let's have a great show. Questions, comments, I'll be more than happy to take those during the show. And I'll be posting my show on my YouTube page, and I'll be posting on Facebook, Instagram, and Messenger, so you will have plenty of chances to see it. So if you can't see me live, don't worry. I'm always on. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Number 9 Florida will face number 7 Georgia this Saturday in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, like I said. We got a big game this weekend. This is a very big one. But let's think about this. The SEC East is up for grabs. Georgia coach Kirby Smart said, we've had our bye week. We needed that break after getting humiliated at the hands of LSU in Death Valley a couple weeks ago. We took that time off and really worked on a lot of things. I feel good about our team's chances in the SEC East. We've shown a lot of people how resilient we are, and I'm going to be honest with you. We got a long way to go this season because I'm a little bit worried about Florida because Florida is a tough football team now. And I'm going to tell you right now, give those guys credit. Florida coach Dan Mullen said, we're looking forward to this battle. We're looking forward to facing Georgia on Saturday. Hopefully everything will go well. We'll have a great game, and we can see what can happen. You'll see what our Florida Gators are made of as we get ready for this battle. And remember, this is a top 10 battle. This is a biggie. The SEC East is up for grabs. But also, too, we need to throw in Kentucky for good measure. And I'll address that here in a bit. But let's think about this for a minute. Jake Fromm. 2 weeks ago Saturday, he struggled against LSU. McCole Hardman, he couldn't do anything. I mean, the LSU defense came ready to play. And I'm going to be honest with you. The SEC East is a wild battle. But this is the most intriguing thing about the whole thing. And this is an honest truth. Florida needs to beat Georgia, and then next week, they have to turn around and root for Georgia to beat Kentucky to take sole possession of first place in the SEC East. How crazy is that? Anyway, think about this. Felipe Franks is one of the best quarterbacks at Florida they've seen in a long while. And also think about this too. Florida's been averaging 34.4 points per game. Their points against per game is 16.6. They've been averaging over 408 total yards this season. And the yards allowed has only been 323.3. Very impressive. Now, Florida's defense has got to step up. If they want to stop Jake Fromm, McCole Hardman, those are going to be the guys they need to stop. As far as Georgia goes, they've been averaging 39 points per game. Their points against per game has been 16.3. Total yards has been 461. And their yards allowed has only been 310 for the whole season. Very impressive. But I will say this. The SEC East is in a stalemate at the moment. And my thing is, if they can show up, now if Georgia can play, and this is going to be a battle down in Jacksonville, there's more than going to be cocktails served at the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. This game is a signal of how the SEC East is going to go. If Georgia wins it, they can take sole possession. Florida's going to need some help, like I said. They got to beat Georgia, then turn around and root for Georgia to beat Kentucky. Really, right now at the moment, Georgia is in control. Georgia and Kentucky, one of those two teams will be in control of their own destiny come next Saturday. But I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to be fair. Whoever survives this game tomorrow is really going to be in the driver's seat to take the SEC East. And Kentucky's got a few battles, and now Georgia's got to face Kentucky next week. And everybody's thinking Kentucky. They're supposed to be a basketball school. We're not seeing it. And I'm going to say this now for everybody here. Georgia, despite the loss to LSU, can still control their own destiny with a big win against Florida on Saturday. And if they can beat Kentucky, I think they got the SEC East wrapped up, if you stop and think about it. Okay, let's move on to the next game we want to talk about. Number 18, Iowa. Number 17, Penn State. Penn State coach James Franklin said the other day at a press conference, he said, we still have an outside chance of winning the Big Ten East. We still have an outside chance of making it to the Big Ten playoff. I'm making it to the Big Ten championship game. But I'm going to say this now. We need a lot of help to get there. Because we've lost to Michigan State. We've lost to Ohio State. We haven't played Michigan yet. And you know Michigan's been out on their revenge tour. But we still have an away outside chance, grant you. But it's still there. Kirk Ferentz of Iowa coach Kirk Ferentz said at his press conference, he said, I love how our team's been playing lately. We've really improved. We're always off or on. Last year we were way off. This year we're way on. And we've played much better than what we have before. And I'm going to be honest with you. We got a lot of things to talk about. And I'm going to say this straight up. I've never seen a performance like this in all my life. And I've seen our team play and I've seen our team down, but I've seen them way up. And we're way up this year. All right, let's think about this for a minute. And you're going to love these numbers. The battle, the quarterback battle. Trace McSorley, 1,461 yards total passing for the season, 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Nate Stanley of Iowa. No one's talked about him all season. No one's given the Hawkeyes a chance. Nate Stanley, 1,559 yards passing this season, 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. No one's talked much about him all season. Miles Sanders, he's been very impressive at running back, 772 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns. Torrin Young, he's kind of on the waiver list, 403 yards total rushing, 2 touchdowns for the season. KJ Hamler, he's been fairly well, 22 receptions, 401 yards, 5 touchdowns. TJ Hawkinson, 424 yards, 3 touchdowns this season. I'm going to be honest with you. This looks like a very intriguing matchup. So we have 2 big matchups, both games at 3:30. As a matter of fact, before I forget, as far as the Florida-Georgia game goes, Georgia is a 6-point favorite and the over-under is 52. And for the Penn State-Iowa game, Penn State, surprisingly, is a 6-point favorite. And the over-under for that game is 51. So there's a lot to think about there. But back to Iowa-Penn State real quick. But let's think about this. And when you listen to these numbers, you think Penn State's got this wrapped up. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Now, Penn State's been averaging 42.6 points per game. And their points against per game has only been 20. They've allowed 22 points against their the defense has allowed 22 points as well. Total yards, 480. They've had a great season so far, except for those 2 losses to Penn State, except for those 2 losses to Ohio State and Michigan State. And the yards allowed, that worries me a little bit. 392 yards allowed. That's what the defense has given up all season for Penn State. Now for Iowa. Now they've only scored 30.6 points per game, but their points against per game is very impressive with 14.1. Now the total yards may worry you. 397.3. But the yards allowed has been fantastic at 258.1. So a lot of people are thinking, Iowa, Penn State, this game's not going to matter. It does matter. Because let me tell you something. Iowa's got one of the best defenses in the country. I'm just thankful Ohio State doesn't have to look at them this year. But let me tell you something. Their defense has only allowed 258 yards total offense. Their defense has only allowed 258 yards. That's very impressive. I don't care who you are or what you do. If the defense steps up, this is going to be a ball game on Saturday down over in Happy Valley. And they're going to be playing in a driving rainstorm. So the McSorley-Stanley battle may not matter. It's probably going to be coming down to Torrin Young versus Miles Sanders. because there is rain in the forecast. It's part of that nor'easter that's coming through the eastern part of the country. Well, let's think about this. Iowa-Penn State is going to be a great battle. No doubt about it. It's going to be the battle of the run game. Because like I said, there is rain in the forecast for Happy Valley. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this game goes on a Saturday over in Happy Valley. Okay, let's move on. Number 14, Washington State versus number 24, Stanford. Washington State coach Mike Leach is coming off of a big win Saturday against Oregon. He said after the Oregon game, he said, "I'm so proud of my guys. I'm so proud of these guys. We may have a chance to take the Pac-12 now. At least win the Pac-12 North. Because if you stop and think about it, we have to play Stanford, and that's our next biggest threat." Excuse, I have a cold, so you have to kind of bear with me. But also, too, Stanford coach David Shaw said, we've hopefully erased our early season woes. We struggled at the start of the season. Now our team's starting to play better, and we'll have to see what happens there. Well, let's think about this for a minute. For Stanford, KJ Costello, he only has about 1,842 yards passing this season, 13 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Bryce Love, the Heisman Trophy candidate everybody's Heisman Trophy winner before the season started. 346 yards, 3 touchdowns. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, 632 yards receiving. He has 9 touchdowns on the season. Now for Washington State. Gardner Minshew. Could we be talking about him in the Heisman Trophy battle? 2,745 yards passing the season, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. James Williams, 313 yards, 6 touchdowns. And also Donavatavian Martin, 465 yards receiving this season and 6 touchdowns for him as well. Let me tell you something. Everybody's overlooked Gardner Minshew. Everybody's overlooked him. Even I've overlooked him. Everybody's been so busy thinking about KJ Costello, Miles Gaskin, Jake Browning. Everybody's been thinking about JT Daniels at USC. Everybody's overlooked this poor Gardner Minshew. And I apologize for that, man. Because let me tell you something. Minshew has shown me a lot when the season started. And I'm going to be fairly honest with you. This is going to be a fun game on Saturday. And this is a Saturday night battle. And surprisingly, Stanford is a 3-point favorite. And I don't understand why, but that's how they feel. And the over-under for this game is 53. Can Washington State shock Stanford? That would be something. And I've said it before. Yes, we're possibly going to have a 2-loss conference Pac-12 champion. We could possibly even have a 3-loss conference champion before this is all said and done. The Pac-12 is weak as a whole. It's not just Stanford, USC, Oregon, and Washington. It's everybody. Let's think about this for a minute. Washington State for the season. They've been averaging over 40 points a game. Their points against per game has been 23.3, very impressive. Total yards, 473.3. And their yards allowed has only been 313.6, very impressive. The defense has really stepped up. And think about it, Gardner Minshew, 2,745 yards passing for the season. And he's really been throwing the ball. He can get the job done. As far as Stanford goes, they've only been averaging about 25 points per game. Their points against per game has been 20.7. That's not very good. Total yards have only been like 354.7 this season. And Stanford's loss to USC and Notre Dame, they've struggled. And the yards allowed has been 405. That is not good. The Stanford defense has got to step up, and in a big way, if they want to win on Saturday night. But let's think about this for a minute. Everybody has said that Stanford was going to run away with the Pac-12. It was going to be Stanford, Oregon, and Washington. We're not seeing it. Washington State has surprisingly come out of the pack. They've come out of nowhere. And Washington State coach Mike Leach said, if our team wins the Pac-12, it is going to be remarkable. And if we can go to the Rose Bowl, that would be a fantastic season for me. And I'd be very happy with that. And you can go to the bank with that. But you know what, Coach Leach? Let's see what you can do against Stanford. I want to see you guys in action. I want to see what your high flyer Gardner Minshew can do against a team like Stanford. You knocked off Oregon. Can you beat Stanford? Then, if you can beat Stanford, then you've really shown me something. You showed me something last Saturday when you knocked off Oregon. Let's beat Stanford, and you'll see. Maybe you can really show me something. And that's all I got to say. Okay. Those are the three big games on the slate for the weekend. But we need to talk about some conference battles. Let's start it off with the Big 12. Ah, yes, the Big 12. The hardest conference in all of college football. But let's think about this for a minute. Number 6, Texas is at the top of the conference. West Virginia is sitting at number 2, Oklahoma at number 3. We have a 3-team race for the Big 12 title. Now, Texas plays Oklahoma State tomorrow night. That game will be on ABC. Oklahoma plays Kansas State. That's a 3:30 game on Fox. And West Virginia just destroyed Baylor 58-14. Now, that 58-14 victory for West Virginia last night has some people concerned. Because, next Saturday, Texas collides with West Virginia. And that is a very big game in the Big 12. Because think about it. Texas beat Oklahoma in the Red River Shootout. And then Texas has to face West Virginia. If West Virginia can beat Texas, that would be a big help to their race in the Big 12. And that will make the game between West Virginia and Oklahoma on November 23rd on a Friday night very important. I've thought about this. Texas is playing great football right now. Sam Ehlinger has really shown me a lot this season, and along with little Jordan Humphrey. Will Greer and Marcus Sims, the dangerous combination at West Virginia right now. Throw in David Sills, we've got it made. Oklahoma, Kyler Murray and Marquise Brown, or should I say Hollywood Brown, that's what he likes to call himself now. But anyway, there's still a 3-team race for the Big 12 title. Texas faces West Virginia next Saturday on November 3rd. Keep that in mind. Oklahoma and West Virginia have yet to play, and that'll be at the end of November. I'm going to tell you right now, this is a big-time battle. The Big 12 race is not anywhere near decided. And I'm going to say this. If Texas can keep on winning and keep pace right now and win out, they will control their own destiny. But West Virginia, despite getting humiliated at the hands of Iowa State, and they took their frustration out on Baylor last night. If West Virginia knocks off Texas, the Big 12 race, the Big 12 championship is going to be thrown upside down. That means if West Virginia can beat Texas, they'll have to worry. Then if they can beat Oklahoma on November 23rd, if it stays as it is right now, this is going to be a very interesting battle for the Big 12 championship. And that's all I can say. That's all I have to say. All right. Let's move on to the Big 10. I'm going to talk about both the Big 10 East and the Big 10 West. Let's think about this for a minute. The Big 10 East is down to Michigan and Ohio State. And I am concerned this time. And Ohio State Nation, you better pay attention to this. You're going to hate me for what I'm about to say. But I'm going to say it now. I am concerned. Here's why. Ohio State is going to have a real battle with Michigan this time. Michigan has gone on the revenge tour. And they're getting their revenge. And they said they're going to do what they're going to do, and they've done it so far. Despite their early season loss to Notre Dame, Michigan's loss was kind of an iffy loss. Ohio State's loss to Purdue was a really bad one. And I'm going to tell you right now, I do believe, and Ohio State Nation's going to kill me for this, But I do believe that Michigan is going to knock off Ohio State this time. Here's why. Ohio State has no run game. They have no run. They have no run game at all. Dwayne Haskins threw the ball 72 times against Purdue last Saturday. You can't do that. Haskins, you got to learn how to run the football. Right now, Ohio State ranks 69th in rushing offense. That is embarrassing. That is not good. The passing offense is great. But Dwayne, you got to learn how to run the ball, bud. If you're going to win a ball game like this. Purdue exploited us last Saturday night. That's what they did. You can't throw the ball 72 times. It does not work. You're going to lose. And Purdue proved that last Saturday. But I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to say it now. Ohio State does not look good. We're banged up. No, we don't have Nick Bosa anymore. But our defense has got to step up. Chase Young, Draymond Jones, you guys have got to step up. And let's face it, Michigan is just clicking on all cylinders right now. They're clicking on all cylinders. Let's think about this. Shea Patterson, he's having the season of his life. Karan Higdon, the new big man on campus in Ann Arbor. And of course, you got Zach Gentry, one of the best rushers in the Big Ten. I mean, I'm not even talking about Mike Weber and J.K. Dobbins of Ohio State. I'm really worried this time because Michigan, they're in their defense. Michigan's defense has been playing great. They're fantastic right now. Kalike Hudson and Devon Bush, they're playing the game of their lives right now. They're playing the season they're having right now. Michigan is knocking on the door of the college football playoff. And let me tell you something. This year, Jim Harbaugh and the Wolverines, and I'll give Harbaugh credit. As much as it pains me to say it, I will give Jim Harbaugh credit. Michigan is going on the revenge tour. Despite the loss to Notre Dame, it's been nothing but a big old revenge tour. All those years of Michigan being an average football team, and I thought when the season first started, when that loss to Notre Dame, I'm thinking, oh, they're going to have a mediocre season. Harbaugh is going to be out. I'm going to say this now. Even if Ohio State beats Michigan this time, I do believe Jim Harbaugh's job is safe. Because let's think about it. Michigan is knocking on the door of the college football playoff. They're 5-0 in the conference, 7-1. The one loss was to Notre Dame. Ohio State, they're 4-1, 7-1 overall. Their one loss was to a 3-4 loss unranked Purdue team. But let me tell you something. And I'm going to say this now. And you can go to the bank with this, and Ohio State Nation's going to hate me. I do believe Michigan's going to knock off Ohio State this time. Because let's think about this for a minute. Michigan, they have a great defense. They have a great running back in Karan Higdon. And they got a great quarterback in Shea Patterson. Although sometimes Patterson can be a little shaky at times. But the running game, they got a running game. And that's all there is to it. And Karan Higdon is the best running back in the Big Ten at the moment. Now I want to talk about the Big Ten West. I know it's kind of rare that I split it up because the Big Ten is split up into the Big Ten East and Big Ten West. I want to talk about the Big Ten West because let's think about this for a minute. Wisconsin faces Northwestern and Iowa, and you know about the matchup between Iowa and Penn State. Northwestern, despite the season they've had so far, they're 4-1 in the conference, but they're 4-3 overall. The Northwestern Wildcats are in first place in the Big Ten West. How have they been doing it? Let's think about this for a minute. Clayton Thorson, one of the best, a surprise quarterback. He can be shaky at times. Jeremy Larkin, his running abilities are not that good. And Flynn Nagel, questionable at best. Now Wisconsin sitting number 20 Wisconsin. And Wisconsin faces Northwestern on Saturday. They're 3-1 overall and 5. They're 3-1 in the conference, 5-2 overall. A lot of people thinking if it weren't for that loss to BYU, Wisconsin would be staring at the college football playoff as well. Well, let's think about Wisconsin for a minute. Alex Hornibrook. If he's average, they don't win. But if he's great, look out. Jonathan Taylor, one of the best runners But I do now think Karan Higdon is doing better than Jonathan Taylor, and that was proven when Michigan faced Wisconsin. A.J. Taylor, he's been questionable at wide receiver at Wisconsin as well. As far as Iowa goes, I've already talked about Iowa, so I'm not going to go any further. And if you ask me, Iowa's the one that's really sitting in the driver's seat. Now, despite the fact that Wisconsin did beat Iowa, I'm not going to deny it. If Iowa wins out, I think they'll be playing for a Big Ten title. I really do. Northwestern, they don't stand much of a chance against Wisconsin on Saturday, to be honest with you. So the team that really could be really sitting pretty is Iowa. I know it sounds crazy. And despite the fact that Iowa lost to Wisconsin, I feel pretty good about the Hawkeyes' chances. They've had a great season. No doubt about it. And I'm going to say it now. Look out for the Hawkeyes in the Big Ten West. All right. We've talked about the Big 12 and the Big 10. Let's talk about the Pac-12. Let me get a quick swig here before we do. Now, the Pac-12 has really come out of nowhere. I'm not going to waste my time with Washington State and Stanford. Now, although Washington State is 3-1 in the conference, 6-1 overall, and Stanford's had some struggles. 3-1 in the conference, that bad loss to USC, and then Stanford has one bad loss. And right now they're 5-2 overall. But think about this for a minute. Number 15 Washington faces Cal. That should be an easy game. Number 19 Oregon faces Arizona. Fairly easy game. It should be. Washington State and Stanford. That's the game of the weekend out of the Pac-12 North. And as it stands right now, Washington State would be playing for the Pac-12 championship if everything pans out correctly. And I'm not going to go into the names because you guys already know who they are. My pick to win the Pac-12 North now has got to be Washington State. Now they got to face the Washington Huskies yet at the end of the season. But all these rivalry games coming up here in a few weeks. There's a lot at stake. And I'm going to say it now. If Stanford can knock off Washington, we're going to be right back where we started. Everybody talking about Washington. Everybody better be thinking about, we got 4 teams that could possibly take the Pac-12 North. Washington, Washington State, Oregon, Stanford. It has been a strange season so far. And strange things have happened. I've seen it all. The Pac-12 North is not anywhere near decided. Washington State, if they can knock off Stanford, if they can beat Stanford and go and keep this record up when they go to face Washington at the end of the season, more than the Apple Cup, there's going to be a lot more at stake than the state of Washington. The Pac-12 North is probably going to come down to these two, Washington and Washington State. But throw Oregon in there. It's going to be very interesting to see how that goes. Think about it. Justin Herbert, C.J. Verdell, Dylan Mitchell. They struggled against Washington State last Saturday night. Gardner Minshew had the game of his life. Devontavian Martin had the game of his life last week against Oregon. And James Williams, he had the game of his career last Saturday. And that's all there is to it. And the bottom line is the Pac-12 North is not anywhere near decided. Now let's talk about the mess in the Pac-12 South. This is a mess. Think about this for a minute. Utah, 3-2, 5-2 overall. And number 24, Utah, faces UCLA tonight. I think that game is going on. USC faces Arizona State. USC, they were the odds-on favorites to win the Pac-12 when the season started. They got 3 losses. They're 3-2 in the conference and 4-3 overall. 3 losses for Stanford. That's a losing season for them. And Colorado, they're 2-2 in the conference and 5-2 overall. I haven't forgot about the Colorado Buffaloes. They face Arizona there this week. But think about Utah, about the Utah Utes for a minute. They've shocked everybody. Tyler Huntley, I haven't talked much about him. I think I need to start talking about him now. Zach Moss and Britton Covey. But let's think about this for a minute. The Utes have shown me something that nobody else has. Could they take the Pac-12 away? Utah may be good enough to win the Pac-12 South, and I feel the same way about Colorado. But think about Colorado. Steven Moritz, Travion McMillan, and Laviska Sherevet Jr. They're great. Now, Colorado's a great football team. Utah or Colorado, they're possibly good enough to win the Pac-12 South. But as far as winning the Pac-12 Conference Championship, I'm not sure about that, because here's why. The Pac-12 South is a little bit weak. And think about USC. Cedric Ware, JT Daniels, Michael Pittman Jr. USC is a very young team this year. That's all there is to it. Since they lost Sam Darnold to the NFL, they haven't been the same. Now, USC does place Arizona State, and Colorado faces Arizona. But let me tell you something. But I will say this in all fairness. Utah and Colorado, one of those two teams, will win the Pac-12 South. They may not win the Pac-12 championship, because let's think about out of the North, you got Stanford, Oregon, Washington State. All those teams could take it for the taking. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. The Pac-12 South is going to be very interesting to see what happens going forward. And that's all there is to it, ladies and gentlemen. That's all there is to it. And I'm going to say this. Tyler Huntley is a great quarterback at Utah. Zach Moss, Britton Covey, they've surprised me. Colorado, Steven Moritz, Travion McMillan, and Laviska Sherevet Jr., they've impressed me as well. And that's all I can say. All right. Now it's time, and last but certainly not least, we need to talk about the SEC, the Southeast Conference. As you know, number 12 Kentucky faces number 9 Georgia. Now, number 12 Kentucky has a bye week. Next week, they face number 9 Georgia. And you already know about the Georgia-Florida battle, so I'm not going to go any further. And listen to this. All three of these teams are 4-1 in the conference and 6-1 overall. Whew. But let me tell you this. For Kentucky, Terry Wilson has surprised me. Benny Snell Jr. has been a real surprise. Lynn Bowden Jr. Wow. Kentucky number 12. I think somebody forgot to give them the memo that they're only supposed to be a basketball school, not a football school. I think somebody forgot to mention that to them. But I shouldn't act like that, and I'm sorry, but I'm just kidding around. But anyway, number 7 Florida, number 7 Georgia, number 9 Florida. For Georgia, you got Jake Fromm, one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC outside of the state of Alabama. Elijah Holyfield, one of the best running backs outside of the state of Alabama. Mecole Hardman. All three of those guys last Saturday against LSU, all three of those guys in the game against LSU, they all struggled. So there's some big question marks there. But for Florida, think about this for the Florida Gators. They had to survive Vanderbilt last Saturday. Let's think about this. For Florida, you got Felipe Franks. A surprise, the next big thing outside of Danny Warfel. Jordan Scarlett. I think everybody's taking him lightly. And Van Jefferson. What a matchup that's going to be between Georgia and Florida on Saturday. And that's all there is to it. Now, this is I've already told you the strange twist. I'll tell it to you again. And pay attention to this. Florida has to beat Georgia on Saturday, and then all of a sudden, you're going to think, Scott, you're crazy. But this is the honest truth. Florida has to beat Georgia, and then the following Saturday when Georgia faces Kentucky, Florida has got to turn around and cheer for Georgia, to cheer for Kentucky to beat Georgia, to take sole possession of first place. Let me back up. Florida has to beat Georgia, and then all of a sudden, the following Saturday, Florida has to cheer for Georgia to beat Kentucky to take sole possession of the SEC East. I know it's crazy. I know it's the SEC, and I know things can happen. But if you've ever seen anything like this, I have a few times. And I'm going to say it is going to be an interesting Saturday next week. Everybody's taking the SEC lightly. But I'm going to tell you this. This conference The Southeast is always crazy. All those close battles and all those wild comebacks, it's just another typical Saturday. This has become the new norm for all of us. And the bottom line is, one of these three teams will win the SEC East and have a right to play for the SEC crown. And all of a sudden, whoever wins the SEC East and gets the right to go to Atlanta, look out. Then this takes me right into the SEC West. Number 1, Alabama. I want to talk about which takes me right into the SEC West. And it's very simple. Ladies and gentlemen, the SEC West may be decided next Saturday night, if you stop and think about it. Number 1, Alabama. Number 4, LSU. Both teams have a bye week before the big battle on November 3rd in Death Valley. Alabama's 5-0. LSU's 4-1. And Alabama's undefeated so far. You think about this for LSU. They got Joe Burrow, Nick Brissett, and Justin Jefferson. And they're the three best outside of the state of Alabama. As for Alabama, they have Tua Tagovailoa, Najee Harris, and Jerry Jeudy. What a matchup that's going to be next Saturday night. Now, Alabama-LSU is not tomorrow. It's the following Saturday. And I think that's going to be a Saturday night battle. And I'm going to say this now with special interest. The game Saturday night between LSU and Alabama next Saturday is going to be very interesting to see how that goes. Because here's the deal. The SEC West will be decided in Baton Rouge, in Death Valley. And I'm not going to go any further about it until next Saturday, and that's all there is to it. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for my closing thoughts on this night. I have the fallout from the Michigan State scuffle from last Saturday. Michigan State University has been fined $10,000 for violating the sportsmanship policy. It all started with Michigan linebacker Devin Bush dragging his feet across the Michigan State Spartan logo at midfield. Michigan State took major exception to it. And of course, there was a pregame scuffle because of it. Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh said, Michigan State pulled some big Bush League antics. That was inexcusable. Michigan State coach Mark D'Antonio said, that's BS. Michigan wants to start the war. But let me tell you something. Michigan State has been fined $10,000 for violation of the sportsmanship policy. Big Ten has reprimands for Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh, Michigan State coach Mark D'Antonio, and Michigan linebacker Devin Bush. I want to ask the Big Ten a question. Where's the $10,000 fine for Michigan? Because they're about as guilty as they're about as guilty. As a matter of fact, they're more guilty. Devin Bush started it. And as far as I'm concerned, Michigan State had every right to finish it. Yes, Michigan did give Michigan State a beat down 21-7. But that's beside the point. Where's the fine for Michigan? What about them? They're as guilty as Michigan State is. This is ridiculous. Now, Jim Harbaugh, Michigan's going on their revenge tour, and Michigan's playing much better. I'll give him credit. But I will say this about Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is still a whiny little sissy girl who stomps his feet and cries like a brat when he doesn't get his way. I still hate Harbaugh. Or should I say Harwussy. Just to rub it in on you Michigan fans. But let me tell you something. Devin Bush should have been suspended for what he pulled on Saturday against Michigan State. Now, I know it's pregame. But Devin Bush was the one. He was the one that pulled the Bush League antics by stomping his feet on the Michigan State logo before the game. So where's the fine for Michigan? What about them? They're as guilty as they are. And they're the ones that started it. And as far as I'm concerned, Michigan State had every right to finish it. And they did. And I'm going to give them credit for that any day of the week. So Jim Harbaugh, yes, your team is playing great. But the Bush League antics have got to stop. And I'm going to tell you right now, if Devin Bush tries that at Ohio State, you better believe the Buckeyes are going to come out in there and take him apart. Because you don't do that at another team stadium. You come to, and I'm going to tell you right now, Devin, you come to our house and you try that, I guarantee you, Urban Meyer is going to send 4 of his biggest, baddest dudes to take you apart. It's going to be like the old days of the old NWA when Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen used to gang up on somebody. It's going to make the old days of the NWA and Ric Flair and the Horsemen look like a cartoon show. If you dare come to Ohio State and try those Bush League antics in our stadium, you have to. But this time, Michigan on Ohio State, you got to come to our house. You try that in our house, you going down, and going down big. And that's all I have to say. So you better watch your back when you come to Ohio State. And Jim Harbaugh, you, my friend, you're going to be crying like a girl. And I shouldn't be sounding like this, but Jim Harbaugh, you're still a whiny little sissy. You want to hide behind your mommy. But you ain't going to be hiding behind us. And you're not going to be hiding behind any of your buddies when you come to Ohio State. Because here, we take names. And you don't play games like that in our house. And that's all I have to say tonight. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. I want to thank you guys for taking the time with me tonight. Please be back with me tomorrow night at 11:30 or midnight for the College Football Wrap-Up Show, where I'll wrap up the Saturday in college football. If there's any upsets along the way, it's going to be a very, very busy day tomorrow. And please join me tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time for the Scott Manning Facebook Sports Talk Live Show. I'll take your questions, and I'll be more than happy to have fun here on Saturday morning. I want to thank you guys so much for being with me here tonight. I'll be back at about 11:30 at midnight tomorrow night for the College Football Wrap-Up Show. And join me Saturday morning at 9 a.m. for the Scott Manning Facebook Sports Talk Live Show. I'll give you a wrap-up of Game 3 of the World Series. I'll get you ready for NASCAR on Saturday. And I'll get you ready for the busy weekend in college football. You guys have a great night. Thank you so much for being with me. Thank you for being with me at an earlier start time. I'll be back. It will be back to 10 o'clock next Friday night. I promise you. And we're going to have a great week next week. We're going to have a lot to talk about. We got Texas, West Virginia on Saturday. We have LSU, Alabama on Saturday, probably on Saturday night in Death Valley. Ohio State will be back in action. I know it's been a quiet week, but Michigan will be back too. I want to thank you guys so much for being with me. You guys have a great night. Thank you so much, and you guys have a great night. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for being with me, and God bless. And the phone started to ring.